Apparently, I have a very controversial take on this movie because I f***ing loved Scream 3. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Justin here. As always, guys, thanks for stopping by and hanging out with me today for another Scream review. Today, we're going to be going over the third movie in the Scream franchise, and apparently I have a very controversial take on this movie because I f***ing loved Scream 3. I guess we'll just get it all right out there in the open for the third movie, but I love this movie. I've read nothing but bad reviews, every ranking that I see, not every ranking, but for the most part, I'm in a bunch of nerdy movie groups and I look on Letterboxd and things like that, and the general consensus seems to be that third always ends up on the bottom of everybody's list. I guess I expected to hate it just from peer pressure, I guess, by society. Society telling me that I should hate Scream 3, but god damn it, I love Scream 3, and we're gonna get into everything that has to do with Scream 3. Scream 3. Scream 3. Now, in case you did miss it, I've already posted my reviews for Scream 1 and 2. Those were really deep dives. This one isn't going to be intense. This one, I guess, will be a little bit more casual. People still refer to this movie as an absolute misfire, which is interesting because usually when people take a look back, when they go back in time, people tend to have a little bit more reverence. Time usually adds a little bit of nostalgia for movies that maybe didn't get a good reception at the time, but then you take a look back and you're like, you know what, that's not too bad. I actually like that. But it seems to me that Scream 3, that's just not the case. I got a few notes that I'm gonna go over here on my little note app, and we're just gonna discuss it. Now, like I said about my first two reviews, I did a lot of background information. I'm not gonna do a full edited, video essay about this one, but I did wanna read this one little snippet from Independent because I feel like it sort of fills in a lot of the gaps about where the franchise was and what sort of happened between the second movie and the third movie, and there was a lot going on. The Weinstein brothers and Kevin Williamson had a very tumultuous relationship after the second movie, and things just got really weird. Things were different the third time around for the Scream franchise. Because of a renegotiated contract, Neve Campbell was only on set for 20 days, reducing Sidney to a supporting player in the completed film. I have some thoughts on that. I actually think that was a good thing. Side note, director Wes Craven only agreed to return if the Weinsteins financed his 1999 passion project, an out-of-character inspirational drama called Music of the Heart, starring Meryl Streep. Williamson then, at the peak of his powers as the creator of Dawson's Creek, also had commitments elsewhere, leaving Scream 3's script to be written by relative newcomer Ehren Kruger. He would struggle to emulate Williamson's sharp and playful tone. So first off, we have Neve Campbell playing a lesser role in this one, which, in my opinion, my first positive of the thing, I actually think that helped the film. It sort of paved the way for this movie to go outside of just the Sidney Prescott as a direct character. Of course, the story centers around her, but because of her absence in this movie, because she sort of took a back seat, we got a lot more development of the secondary characters, which was a big complaint when it came to the second movie for me. That was my main complaint, was that all of the characters in the movie just felt like, just really like afterthoughts. And in this movie, all of these extra characters really shined. Even the new ones got more character development than they did than the newcomers in the second movie. So I actually didn't mind that at all. In this instance, I felt like having a fresh writer in here really served the movie. This, what some people would call jumping the shark, with the meta inside meta aspect of this movie, the kookier humor, the sort of sillier character aspects, I really enjoyed. I love camp. I love campy movies. It's probably one of my favorite genre of films to watch, is a cheesy 80s, early 90s style campy film. So for me, this was right in my wheelhouse. Ehren Kruger is also no slouch when it comes to screenwriting. He wrote the script for the original Ring, the American remake, which is a classic. Came a few years after this, but it shows that he actually does have a knack for story and creating suspense, which Scream 3 I feel like did. But I felt like his fresh take on this characters, taking the story to Hollywood, I thought it really served the story well. We have a more expansive story. We have a bigger scope of the story, where we have a lot more players here. Beginning of the movie, we do a quick catch up with some of our characters. We have Cotton Weary hosting his own cheesy sort of tabloid news show, 100% Cotton. We have Gale Weathers now an anchor at some new network. She's doing her thing. She's obviously continuing to grow in her career. We have Sydney, who has now put herself in hiding, doing some kind of helpline, anonymous helpline for girls in trouble and stuff, which is a pretty cool aspect. Seems like something she'd want to do, lay low and try to help others. It is interesting that the two shittiest people in the franchise as far as their motivations, being Gale and Cotton Weary, sort of, you know, these like leeches to true crime and, profiting off people's murder, have now, like, I guess, quote unquote, succeeded more than anybody else, even though they sort of have the shittiest personalities when it comes to compassion, I guess, or lack of compassion. But all of these characters and this whole story takes place during the production of Stab 3. So it's our first instance of meta here. We're doing the third movie. It takes place during the production of the third Stab movie. So there's so much meta going on here that it's absolutely ridiculous. And that is my next positive about this movie. I 100% loved all of the meta stuff going on in here. I feel like it's easy to come up with a very logical continuation to a story for a second film. It's pretty easy to squeeze out a sequel when it comes to a second movie. When it comes to a third movie, you have to do something different. They really had no choice but to just go nuclear with the meta. So not only is the third movie taking place on the set in Hollywood, in the third Stab movie, you have characters like Gale rolling along in this movie with her actor counterpart. All of these real life characters in the movie partnering up and meeting their actor counterparts. I just found really interesting. I love movies that take place in the film industry, in the world of filmmaking. I find that so interesting. It gets even a little bit more creepy when you think about the whole aspect of having this predatory executive movie producer trading sex for movie roles and opportunities, which is exactly what the producer of this movie forced girls to do. It's really mind-blowing how much of this movie is actually, you know, sort of played out in real life. It's really fascinating. Not only do they skewer the third installments of the movies, you even have Randy coming back, my personal favorite character, to talk about the third sequel in movies, which was a really nice touch. It was great to see him again. But it also sort of skewers and sort of hops onto that investigation, detective, police story aspect. But as far as the meta aspect, I love how far they took it. And I think at the same time that I loved it, I think maybe that jumped the shark for a lot of people. Taking it out of Woodsboro, putting it in Hollywood, maybe it was just a little too much for people to handle, and I guess I understand that, but to me, I was just having a blast. You have Parker Posey's character is amazing. You have Putty playing a very Putty character. One thing I also loved, which was a nice touch, just a small touch by Craven, was a touch of more sort of traditional horror, with Sydney having these flashbacks of her mother. It was pretty creepy at times, seeing her mother in the window and having that weird aspect of seeing her at the end with her underneath the coroner's like body bag thing. That was really creepy.
What are you staring at? Don't you remember your mother?
Wasn't supernatural at all, but it sort of gave us a little bit of that, you know, what this movie could be like with more of a supernatural angle. And diving deeper into Sydney's character, I felt was amazing. You really got to dive into the past. I felt that was a very, very smart decision to sort of go back, dig a little history, get to know Sydney's mom, get to know sort of what was going on in her past. And we find out that she had a brother. Her mom was really getting around back in the day, probably pressured to doing things that she didn't want to do to try to make it in the film industry, and it didn't work out, and she turned her son away. I thought that was great motivation. Even though we didn't know these characters very well, I felt that it was fleshed out in the writing a little bit better, and I really loved that aspect of the story. I think we got so much of the investigative stuff that it filled in all of those gaps, so it kind of worked for me. You have the detective story, you have Gale and Gale digging deep into all this background, you have Dewey, you have all this stuff going on, and I thought it was great. Now, the next, when you get into the negative, this wasn't really so much of a negative for me, but I know it was a negative for a lot of people, and that's this voice changer deal.
Roman Bridger, director. And brother.
This falls into the camp aspect of the movie, which I just kind of liked. I know it's plot convenience having this device that can make you sound like anybody. It's sort of the only way to make some of these plot elements work. But for me, I don't know. It just worked. It fit right in with everything that this movie was. And I got a kick out of it. I don't know what to say. I'm not going to apologize for liking what some people think this movie jumped the shark with. I loved it. The whole third act was fantastic. I know for a long time I thought the killer was not going to be her brother. I thought it was going to be the detective or the movie producer. Great reveal. It kept me guessing the entire time. There was a lot more suspects and it just kept me guessing, and I love the third act. And finally, the last scene of the movie, I loved the last scene, the last shot of this movie, which is really sort of bittersweet. At the end of the movie, she shuts the door. They're getting ready to watch the movie. She shuts the door to the back deck and it mysteriously opens. She looks at it, and finally, for the first time since this whole thing started, she accepts a safety that she thinks she has. She doesn't feel the need to go and shut that door because she thinks it's finally over. Metaphorically, shut the door on this whole side of her life, this chaotic, murderous Woodsboro bullshit. She thinks it's all behind her, and she doesn't bother shutting that door, and it shows massive growth in her character, and I 100% adored that ending. And that brings me to my final thoughts. I have no idea what happens in Scream 4. I haven't seen it. I have no idea what to expect. That being said, in my personal opinion, I felt like they just should have stopped at 3. It seemed like a perfect ending to the story. It seemed like a perfect ending to Sydney's story. Her arc closed. She's finally at peace. I mean, god damn, she's been through so much. I felt so bad for Sydney's character in this movie. Betrayed by everybody in her entire life, including a brother she never knew she had. Punching her in the face and beating the shit out of her. I just hated, I'm done seeing this character just tortured like this. I don't like it. She's finally got peace, and I just feel like the movie should have just ended at 3. It would have been just a perfect trilogy to me. Obviously, that wasn't the case. 10 years later, Kevin Williamson did have a lot more involvement, and it was also Wes Craven's final film as a director with Scream 4. So I don't know what to expect. I feel like, I don't know. I don't know what to expect. I feel like they've told a complete story here. Anything else is really pushing it. And a lot of people, I don't know. I don't know what to think about this, but I'm excited to see where it goes. So those are my final thoughts on Scream 3. I hope I didn't forget anything. I sort of just stopped the movie and then turned on the camera, so this is kind of a chaotic, rambling review, but these are my thoughts. I fucking loved Scream 3. When I do a ranking at the end of this review series, I can't see the number 2 and number 1 spots going to any other movies but 3 and 1. And usually 3 is at the bottom of everybody's list. But I love this movie. Guys, sound off in the comments and let me know what you thought of Scream 3. If you do like it, I know we're kind of on an island as far as loving this movie. So guys, thank you so much. I think we're done here. Remember to stay weird, always be yourself, always like and subscribe, always go back and watch all of my old videos, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye. I'm going crazy in this one, Pete. I think I had too much caffeine.